Hey.
We're saying stuff and things.
Shh. Back up. You hot, girl. You can keep talking.
You told me to shush.
And I've stopped listening.
Sorry. Hi, this is episode number 7 of Well, We Tried.
Yeah.
We were just informed by our guest, which we'll get to. I'm Jessica.
I'm Grace.
This is episode 7 of Well, We Tried, and I was just informed that no one's going to actually hear this until like 12 months from now. So
Yeah.
in the future, there will be flying cars
Yes.
and whatever.
And our podcast.
I'm sure you'll have a few listeners. Would you like to introduce who I am?
No.
No? He told us that no one's going to listen.
We're more important than you. You can hold on. So, Jessica, let's discuss about... I'm just kidding. So, this is our friend Chris Spangle.
Hello.
Chris has a number of hats. He is the web director for the Bob and Tom Show.
Mm-hmm.
He is a host on the acclaimed podcast We Are Libertarians.
Very good.
It's very good. That's a great adjective.
Good.
Good. Good is a good adjective. And Chris is also very self-driven. He's got a lot of self-projects going on currently.
Is that a euphemism for masturbation?
That
Oh my
too.
gosh. This is a clean show.
No, it isn't.
Fuck,
Oh.
it's not.
Aw.
Yeah.
If you're
In the future, it's going to be.
Yeah, you think that now.
I'm just really sad over here. I'm sulking.
But yeah, so Spangle, he was sitting in the office where both Jessica and I work. And I said, Chris, what are you waiting on? He goes, I just don't want to go home. I'm like, well, you want to come be our first guest?
because I wanted to go. I'm like, I'll just sit here and add Bob and Tom podcasts to directories that no one ever goes to, so I don't go home and kill myself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
If you think our self-esteem is doing well, I think with Chris in the room, our self-esteem may have gone down a few points.
It's not that I don't love myself. It's just
Because
that I'm not having a good time.
Yeah. Right now or just in general?
Right now.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
let's
Oh, wow. Well,
let's-
that's with us.
let's pump up the party.
No.
I would play music, but you told us that we could get sued.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm having a podcast intervention with you two. We
Pretty
need
much.
After 7 episodes.
I haven't
We
listened.
played so many copywritten things.
I
Yeah.
have not listened, but I'm guessing there's a lot wrong with this.
A lot, probably.
No, we play 9 seconds of the 90s, meaning we
Mhm.
play like about 9 seconds worth of either a movie or a song
Or a
that
TV intro.
we do not have ownership of.
Okay.
Which we don't claim, but we promote.
Okay, if you are playing 9 seconds and it is part of a discussion, then you're okay.
That's
See?
absolutely what it is.
We're
Okay.
going somewhere.
But if you see the thing with podcasts, and is there a theme to this podcast or what? There was no setup.
We also haven't really figured that out yet.
okay.
Just two girls in our generation chatting.
Just kind of
and
figuring out-
Probably younger girls, because we're so young, would enjoy. They're
We're
like,
just-
oh yeah, stuff and things,
You're
guys.
very young, very nubile.
Thank you. Nubile. I like that adjective.
I thought you said vile.
I don't think I've
so-
ever... You should use that in bed.
Oh, I do.
Stop.
I do.
Nubile.
You're very you're very athletic and nubile.
Aw.
And Jess is the athletic
I
one.
am athletic and nubile. I have to also go look up what nubile means because I'm pretty dumb.
It
I'm
means
just
like,
supple.
Yeah.
don't use other big words.
Shuple.
It means I'm good?
Yeah.
Huh?
If you're nubile, you're good.
All
Yeah.
right.
That's good. That's positive.
Google nubile.
No,
So, go ahead.
No, you're the host.
No, I was just going to say...
Are
so
we?
kind of...
No, but I think
really? No, so kind of backtracking. So we brought Chris in here, one, because he was bored and we needed a guest.
This is a porn?
Nubile?
Yeah.
no.
You guys, this is Nubile Films porn.
It's a sexy word.
Yeah, I'm sure. If
It's a
the name
sexy
of
word for a sexy girl.
You know, and people said blue waffle wasn't dangerous either, and then you would look it up.
I actually made that a coworker's background this week. I made Blue Waffle Jeff's background
Oh,
this week.
God. Jeff Vibert,
Yeah.
There's so much
another
to
critically
Google.
acclaimed podcaster.
So I offered my services. I upload. I'll take.
Chris
take
is going to
control.
host our show. Go ahead.
This is what happens when you invite me on a podcast. I take over.
Yeah.
I'm just used to being the bus driver. It's like if you had Tom Griswold on your podcast,
Oh.
you're not going to be hosting your own podcast.
That's
He
true.
will take it over. And you know me, I'm exactly like Tom Griswold.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica.
I'm over here reading Nubile is of a girl or young woman, sexually mature, suitable for marriage. I am
You are.
sexually mature and suitable for marriage.
Two
I'm a
nubile
Scorpio.
bitches.
I'm a Scorpio. That's what we do. We're
Yeah.
intuitive and we're like sexy or something like that. Sorry. Go ahead with your podcast, Chris. I
No, I
would
just.
like to apologize for interrupting.
Well, I guess we'll just talk about what makes a good podcast.
Yeah.
Not interrupting somebody.
I think that was kind of our question going on, is just figuring out where we're supposed to go with this. And I mean, that's kind of why we went with the title Well, We Tried, because A, we're figuring out what we want to do and have kind of options as to what we do, and B, a lot of people are just kind of out there
Anyone
trying.
can do it. Everyone has a podcast right now. There's high schoolers with podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's awesome because it's encouraging people to broadcast.
But
and
it's not just
pursue your
podcasts.
passion, because everyone talks about how radio is a dying industry, yada,
Yeah.
yada, yada.
But it's not just podcasting. It's just in general. Like
Yeah.
if you want to try something new in your life, incorporating something new, or learning about somebody else new in your life, and just kind of exploring avenues that people may not want to explore on their own.
Why do I feel like this is about bisexuality? all of a
Yeah,
sudden?
like a nubile women.
Is new.
How do you not know it is?
Damn it.
If this is,
Anyway, if you're listening
I
in the
just
future.
lucked into the greatest podcast ever.
Get naked.
So I played softball in college. True story.
Were you a pitcher or a catcher?
I was a pitcher.
Oh,
I pitched fast.
that doesn't work well for me.
See, I want to ask if she ever had a lesbian experience.
No.
But I don't know if this is that kind of show.
No, go
I
ahead.
have not. I can say I haven't. And I was a little offended that none of the lesbians on the team ever hit on me. And they even had like a little quiz of like, if you had to kiss or make out or do stuff with any of the straight girls, who would it be? And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Who all did you guys say? And they're listing them off. I'm like, wait, no one said me. Nobody. And they're like, well, we thought about you, but we figured you just laughed the entire time. So then I got taken off the list. I was pissed.
Yeah, that makes
Do
sense.
you laugh a lot during sex?
They wouldn't know anything.
Yeah,
And if I do, it's because I probably
felt
am
uncomfortable.
thinking about what I look like, oh, dear God, sorry.
That's my thing. No one needs to see that.
You two, we need a little Brene Brown up in here. Get you two girls feeling
Yeah.
good about yourself.
We'll get there at some point. We'll see. But anyway, no, Jess has not had a bisexual experience.
No.
That's what we garnered from that. So yeah, it's just a matter of figuring out where we're going. So I'm
You
24.
never asked me if I had a bisexual experience.
I just kind of assumed you never have.
I was in a lesbian relationship for a long
a
time.
lesbian relationship.
If you've ever seen pictures of me from 10 years ago, I look like a lesbian.
That's actually kind of true.
Wait.
Well, let's put this out there. Is it okay to say you're divorced?
Oh, you can say whatever you want
Okay,
about me.
Yeah,
yeah.
so
divorced. Ooh,
you're
I don't know
divorced.
anything.
You've lost a substantial amount of weight in the past couple of years. I'd say, what, 50 pounds? 40, 50?
I'm at 50 now. I
Yeah.
got down to 70.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's incredible to look at old pictures of Chris and then look at him now.
Got my hair growed out. put
Growed
on
out?
New glasses for the first time in 12 years.
Aw.
I look very good.
Fancy.
He's on it.
Yeah.
I know whenever I get my hair did, I feel awesome.
And
so.
ladies, I'm single.
You
Whoop,
hear
whoop.
that, girls? Hopefully he's still single 1
Jump
year
on
from
it.
now when you hear this podcast.
Who is the who are the single girls over on the sales side? Single sales assistants, go.
Well, Casey's married.
So no, none of them.
Fran, I think, has a
doesn't-
boyfriend.
Mhm.
None of that matters
And
to me.
Alexa has a boyfriend.
None of them are interested in me.
So
It's
No.
okay. I have good offerings for you. You just don't take them.
I don't know anybody single really anymore.
I gave one of my best girls to our friend Jeff, and he flopped. Hardcore flopped.
well,
She was DTF, just got out of a 10-year relationship. Just what he was looking for. Nothing.
What's her number?
I got it. I'll send it your way.
No.
well,
But anyway, no, so Chris divorced on the prowl.
Mm-hmm.
But
Not really. I just went through a breakup, and
Yeah.
I'm honestly, I have no desire in dating.
good.
Like it's the thought makes me just want to throw up. It's time to be single. I've never been by myself, and just for an extended period of time. So I'm gonna do that. Build my podcast empire.
When's the last time you were truly single? You'd say before you were married?
Oh no. I mean, I was 5 years single, and that's why I married my first wife. And she was the first person that would date me.
Yeah.
And so I married her, and I married her because I thought I'd never date again. And then, no, I have been single for the majority of the last 2 years since the divorce. Just got out of a 9-month relationship, and yeah. But no, I've always been looking,
Yeah.
and I've always been dating. But right now I'm trying to do neither.
Yeah.
it's
so-
hard though.
And yeah.
Like the awkward window of like getting out of either like a hostile relationship that's really toxic and bad, so you don't know how to like leave it because you're like, I know nothing else. It's this terrifying world.
Yeah.
And then when you do find that, like, oh wait, this is a healthy relationship and you can cling to it. It's awesome, even though it might get judged for me.
This was a fine relationship, and there was no toxicity. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. But there. Going through a divorce is really painful, and I spent 30 1 year's emotionally, can I say retarded?
Yeah.
Emotionally retarded. I mean, I had really had zero.
You're using it correctly, so you can say it.
I had no ability to get in touch with myself, or I didn't feel anything. I tried not to feel anything, and then I started going to therapy last year, and now I feel everything, and I'm just weeping all of the time. So,
Yeah.
so it's been hard to figure out how to be a grown up for the first time at 32, and then to have a relationship where I tried to be healthy, was difficult. And I just need some time to figure some more stuff out so I can be better.
What's that like? I mean, what's that realization that comes over you when you're like, wow, I really haven't experienced anything yet?
I mean, you experience stuff, but when I was a kid, my parents got divorced, and it was very painful. And I became the man of the family. I tried to put myself into that role and became very stoic, and tried to, you know, for men, the emotional lives of men is so incredibly sad. Men are not allowed to feel, and I blame women as much as I blame men. Like, men don't, because the second a man has emotions, then they're not manly. The second that a man has insecurities, women are not attracted to them. And it's very hard for men to feel comfortable to be authentic. And I can tell you that over the last 2 years of dating women, the second that I kind of finally become comfortable and start to show some level of insecurity, then it ends quickly. And if you try to have that conversation with guy friends, you're gay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so it is difficult. And so when you grow up that way, where you grow up where it isn't, you grow up in a culture and a family where you just are focused on work. You're focused on, there was no personal growth. It would just stay busy, be
Right.
successful. And I didn't know how to be intimate with a woman, not sexually. I know all about that, Jess.
Why are you looking at me?
Yeah, why'd you
I'm
say
not judging.
Jess first?
Because I work with her.
Oh.
That could be sexual harassment. You work for a different
Yeah.
company, so
I don't know what I'm doing though anywhere.
you're
So
fair
I don't
game.
know what I'm doing right now.
So,
Neither of us do.
and then
That's not to your point though. It's not. I don't think it's fair. I'd rather see like guys show emotion because I hate when it's like the stone wall.
right.
I have no idea what's going on through your head, and guys, I get irritated. Like, you need to communicate with me. Tell me. And like Donnie would be like, well, I show you with emotion, and that's like a lot of the good positive things. But even if he's irritated with me, or he's sad by something I did, or he's hurt, I'd rather him be like, hi, I'm hurt. Like, when you did this, I feel. I would
Right.
love for him just to tell me. Of course, I'll get defensive, and that's where I have to work on me,
Right.
because that's not fair. But
Men swallow it because we don't want the hassle.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, ooh. So I add the extra hassle, because if I ask and you shut me down, I don't go away.
Right.
I turn into the nagging hen.
Which is no win for us.
Yeah.
So why?
either
Why?
And then if you do tell us, it becomes you yell at us, your emotion at that point.
Because we're so frustrated with your bullshit that
I know.
So it's like, no, I'd rather, because when I was married, it was just, no, it's fine. And men do a lot of people pleasing, and men are far. Codependency is my jam. Some people like
jam.
alcoholism. Some people like drugs. I like rescuing. I like being the white knight. I like taking care of people
Yeah.
as a caretaker. And
I'm still laughing at codependency. It's my jam.
yeah, and so I'm a people pleaser, and so I don't want to let somebody down, especially when I have abandonment issues. I don't want to let the person that I'm attached to, my attachment figure down.
But is that a
Because-
codependent thing, or
But
is
no,
that...
yes, it is, because deep down, abandonment is part of codependency. You don't want to show weakness. It's a perfectionism thing.
Oh my
because-
gosh, you're like telling my story, even though I was never abandoned. So I'm like,
Right.
Yeah.
So-
this is
so-
interesting. We don't need therapy. We got Chris.
So if Jess and I were romantically connected and attached, you essentially replace the parents in a subconscious way, and you want to be perfect for that person because deep down you feel that if you aren't perfect, and there isn't that level of perfection, then there's something wrong with you. You will be rejected, and so it is a constant struggle to be a perfectionist because you don't feel worthy of just being loved. You know, and for the first time in my life, I just got out of a relationship where I felt loved for nothing, just loved. And I didn't have to do anything for the love.
You're
And
just being you.
right. And so it's very difficult to give that up because that person's wonderful. But it is, it's difficult. But in that relationship, I still found it very difficult to not be defensive. Because if there was a problem, then that wasn't me. That wasn't me because, so yeah, I mean, men go through all the same exact emotions that women go through. It's just that they won't talk about them because women in their lives don't let them. Women just need to cut men a break. Like, I feel that when I would get mad at my wife or frustrated, somehow it always became my fault. And so I just stopped talking to her. And I just stopped sharing with her, and I stopped trying to be intimate with her. I stopped trying to share my emotions and thoughts with her because she didn't make it safe for me to do that. I would get in trouble. It would become a fight, and so it's easier just to not say anything.
Yeah.
But is it easier or is it more difficult in the long run? Because I feel like in my situation, when that kind of thing occurs, because to your point, when you say we should give men a break, no. I mean, in some ways I do see that, yes, but
Thank you for proving my point.
But in some ways, there are things that do need to be discussed, and I'm one of those people, I'll tell you how it is. That may have just been your experience, and it's my experience where, and this was also spoken out in my relationship, we got so much better as a couple and so much stronger and trustful in each other.
Trusting.
Thank you. Wow, I'm awake.
I was with you. Every word you said, I'm like, yup, that's a word. If you can say it, it's a word.
Exactly. Exactly. In a word. But we were so much more trusting in each other when we were more expressive in what we wanted and what we thought.
And like that first 6 to 9 months, like everything is usually perfect. They define as the honeymoon where you're not really even being yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that sucks because if you start to be yourself more and more and slip and just be like, oh, and I can relax because I trust you. And then someone, like, if they were to push you away, how do you not just like
shatter all of that trust in a matter of minutes?
How do you keep that going? Because it's almost like, whoa, this is an entirely different relationship now. We can actually be ourselves. So you're not so-and-so from 6 to 9 months ago. And I think, like, I don't know if that's how, like, your relationship was, Grace. Like,
I mean, so I haven't talked about this on the podcast yet, and I'm fine to. In my person, sorry to turn this all on me, Chris.
No, that's fine.
We're girls. We're girls. This is what we're going to do. We're basically just validating.
It's called a conversation, not an interview.
Yeah, but anyway. So in my relationship, and I think this is pretty well known to my close friends and now my podcast followers that will find out from 6 months to a year from now.
Yeah, 12 months.
Thanks, Chris. I'm in a relationship currently. We just had our 2-year anniversary last week.
Spike.
And yeah.
He's a very good boy.
Spike. Let's go with Spike.
Border Collie.
Let's go with Spike. So Spike, I call that the small hair that grows out of the side of my face. I call that Spike. That's a Orange is the New Black thing. Yeah. So anyway, within our relationship, we kind of had a struggle.
Let's say you had an incident that broke your trust.
Twice.
Right.
And so that's what really was the hammer on the head, was that it didn't happen once. It happened twice. And so that's where, when you say give men a break, that's where I get hesitant and I get defensive. And that's just a trusting thing that's happened in my personal experience.
Well,
Is it a trusting thing or a controlling thing?
That too. But it's also a matter of a commitment. You know, I made a commitment to this man for better, we're not married, for better or for worse, but I expect the same trust back.
Well, sure. I mean, but that's nothing that you did that, that is a person violating your trust, and there are consequences for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that he's gone through those consequences over breaking your trust.
He better.
But at a certain point, you have to let that go. And, I've been in relationships where I've been cheated on, and I let it go. It wasn't easy. There were consequences. There were benefits from working through that. Ultimately, it ended in that person cheating on me again, and that was the final nail in the coffin. And I'm not saying that's what Spike did, but I'm saying that in a relationship is the ultimate betrayal of trust.
Mm-hmm.
But over a long-term relationship, you have to just decide, like, can I get over this and work past it, or am I going to bring it up every time we have a fight?
And-
Oh, yes.
Well, and that's dead on. So that's exactly what our hurdle was we ran into, is anytime we would argue, he'd said, are you going, like, I'm trying my best. Are you going to keep bringing this up?
Yeah.
And finally, he went on the vacation where he did it the first time. He went a second time, which I had given him permission. Like, we had talked through it. We prepared for it. So he went and he came back, and I kind of realized it's been a year. I've got to shove this thing off now, or it's going to be a cloud over our entire existence. And so one thing we've started to do is kind of go through each other's pet peeves. So we'll, at the beginning of the week, say, hey, this bugs me. Can we work on it? And whether it be an actual action of, cleaning the house or taking care of the animals, or, emotionally, or the way we communicate. And it's made us stronger than we've been since the incident.
And it's a two-way street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
And-
it's my perfect relationship.
No, it's not.
I every day, every Monday, I'm like, Donnie, these are the things that tick me off.
Yeah.
I need you to change those.
Yeah.
It's a great relationship, I think.
Yeah, I know. You're loving it.
No, so like, for example, this week is his biggest thing is I call whenever the dog does something stupid or hurtful, I call it his dog. Well, I should say her. So I'll say, it's your dog. Take care of it. So I guess that really irks him and makes him feel like I don't care about her. So he said, can you not refer to her as my dog? Can you refer to her as by her name or as, and I said, yeah, that's definitely something. And I genuinely had no clue that would bother him. So it's just being outright and confident. Outright and confident with what we say.
Well, yeah, you're being mean. He doesn't like it. You just don't see it as being mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it comes down to. It just comes down to openness. Being vulnerable is very difficult, and I think it's harder for men, but it's hard for everybody. It's hard for your true self to be seen, and it's even harder when you don't know who or what your true self is. And that's a lot of what I went through, and that's a lot of what I've discovered over the last 2 years. And I've made a lot of stupid mistakes, and I've done a lot of stupid things, and I slip back into old patterns, and my family pattern has a tendency to be mean. So if I'm not managing my stress, if I'm getting too stressed out, then I become mean. And I have spent 2 years working on my weaknesses, identifying what's wrong with me, what I can improve, how I can get better, talking it through with friends, talking it through with people like Grace and Jeff and my friend Greg and my friend Hannah and my therapist and all these different people. So when I start to slip back into those patterns, I've got safety mechanisms to go, hey, you're being an asshole, so you need to stop it, and learning how to forgive myself, learning how to identify things that I could do better. And a lot of the reason that I have bad, broken relationships is me. I'm the common denominator. And there are a lot of things that I have spent a lot of time lying to myself about and never admitting that prevented me from genuine, authentic, open, and honest connection with other people. And as I have tried to work on that stuff, to deal with the fact that I came from a family of chaos. There was, I had loved ones that had alcoholism. If you look at the laundry list from a COA or any kind of list of a child from a turbulent home, my childhood was great until the divorce around 15. As the oldest, I carried too much of the burden, and I have a lot of those traits. Identifying those things in me, and I think in past relationships and even in recent relationships, I've spent far too much time worrying about what the other person could do better to treat me with more love and respect, as opposed to going, I need to work on loving myself and respecting myself first.
Yeah.
And I need to work on this to be a better partner. And instead of, looking at the speck in my partner's eye, looking at the plank in my own, to use a biblical phrase, because I can't control everybody else. I can't control anybody else. I can just control me and my reactions and my behavior. And I've learned how to, I'm an emotional person, it turns out. I didn't know that. And emotions used to rule me, and now I have emotional reactions. They last for 10 minutes, and then I can calm down. But that's been the hardest thing over the last 2 years, is to realize I'm the problem, and to then identify those problems, and then not get so lost in being defensive. Like, well, you did this, so can do this, blah blah blah. And it just breaks down because it's scary. Like, when you go through a divorce and you have had the ultimate betrayal and the ultimate amount of trust broken, and you're already a pretty broken person in the first place, it's incredibly difficult to allow yourself to open up to another woman. I've had my heart broken every 6 months for 2 years, and it's really hard to just keep getting back up, brush myself off, and keep moving on. And I'm just taking some time now to, just because I can't do it. I can't handle making a bad choice. This last one was not a bad choice, but I made a lot of bad choices, Grace knows, in the past, and who I tried to attach myself to. And I got to give myself some time to heal, or else I just can't take it. And so but again, it was as open and as vulnerable as I've ever been in a relationship, but I still was just too defensive.
But you can't just only blame yourself, because I'm hearing this and I'm relating to you a lot because, I'm the queen of defensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And if I start to feel overworked and stressed, I just get ticked, and anyone around me will feel my wrath. And I'm a huge control freak, even though I'm the most messy person. But if someone's not behaving or acting or doing something for me the way I feel they should, I'm completely hurt. I'm defensive about it, and I feel like, how you don't care. You didn't do this. You didn't do this. Where they're just like, what? Where the hell is this coming from? The root of it is that I still need external validation. I still need other people to validate me. And the reason we get into this business is so that people will hear this podcast and get something from it, and then respond to it in some way, and whether good or bad, and give us attention, because then that validates us as a person. And I just have to get to a place where I don't, and I'm really, really close to where I don't need that. I'm enough on my own. I'm not afraid of being alone, and I've been desperate my entire life to not be single, to not be alone, because it's too scary. But yeah, that's why we get defensive. That's why it's like you give and you give and you give, and then you resent when you don't get what you give back. Like, I overgive. I do too much. I try to caretake too much.
That's the people pleaser.
And then I get pissed off.
The family, and my family won't even. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to do all these things for you, and you just push me away and stiff arm because it's not convenient for your schedule. But it's like, do you not realize everything I just did? So then but then I'm still crying and like not begging, but acknowledge me, care about me, love me, because my mom passed away. When she left, I tried to step up and be the mom and take care of everybody. And
how old were you when that happened?
I mean, I was early 20s, so it was 5 years ago now. So I'm still an adult, but my brother, who's a little bit older than me, he he's has some he had a brain tumor when he was 5 years old, so he has a little bit of a learning disability, but he's fine, can take care of himself. He lives on his own, but he's still not, I don't know. I always think he has cognitive issues.
Somebody that you feel a responsibility to take care of.
Absolutely. I feel like I should take care of him, and I have to step up and be like his mom, even though he's also responsible still for his own actions and things that he chooses to do, because he does know right from wrong, and yet he just chooses whatever path he wants and does whatever he wants with his money. And then he's like, well, I'm out of money. And then someone will always bail him out.
Right. And you, how resentful are you towards him?
And probably way too much. And then I have a dad who has basically been an alcoholic or an addict to pills since 1990. So my entire life. I've never known him without it. So he's been sober for just over a year. But it's one of those things where his mood swings would just be he's happy. Stay away from him. Don't even talk to him. Don't be in the room with him, because he was either out of whatever he was taking. And so you had all these things. The one thing that was like a constant was mom, and then she passed away from breast cancer. So it's like, oh, okay, I'll just take care of everybody, because when she left, then he's like using more and more pills to cope. He didn't even cope sober. Ugh.
So did your mom take care of herself?
In the end, towards the end, like when
look, would you sit there and look at your mom and go, man, she's doing too much. She really should take care of herself more.
She probably did everything for everybody else, never did anything for herself.
Right. And we wear that as a badge of honor as caretakers. But that's the worst thing that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Because they're never going to appreciate it. The people who take advantage of caretakers are never going to appreciate everything you do for them. And even if they do, it's never going to be up to your level of what you need and want. You know, and it's not, it's, you know, your mom, by being a caretaker, probably accelerated her exit in some ways, because the stress that you carry causes dis-ease, disease.
And her and my dad probably should have got divorced so long ago. Right. So that their relationship itself was probably toxic, and they both had taken turns to hurt each other like early on in the relationship, because they got married out of high school. They dated in high school, so they were still immature. Not that I'm like justifying anything, but they both took, you know, basically stabs at each other early on, and they kind of carried it through their entire relationship. Now I'll give them credit in the end, like, my dad was there 100%, you know, went with her to treatments, and he took care of her in every single way. But it's like, they probably should have ended that relationship way early, because you hear them fighting, and it's just like bad for kids to hear. And then,
oh, Jess,
I know, I'm a people pleaser.
Oh man,
I try to control I hear your story. I'm like, tell me more about your therapist said.
Yeah.
Well, that's the funny thing. I always say I talk about my experiences in therapy, and she goes, I gotta go. I got to get myself in, so we're working on it.
Oh, my grieving. I never grieved. My grieving was stepping up and taking care of everybody. And then guess who probably hurt the worst from it besides myself was Donnie, who I have a relationship with. He was just like, I can't make you happy. And like, we just weren't getting along. And I don't know how you could get along with me in that time frame, because I was a hot mess, I guess you could say. And we were living together, but he moved
unavailable
out.
At that point. I mean, you were kind of somewhere else.
Oh yeah, and if I thought someone wasn't not behaving, but just like, if someone asks something of me, I'm like, why would you even think I could do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you disconnect instead of so what happens with children who come from chaotic homes? They disassociate, they disconnect from those painful feelings to not feel them. So when my parents got divorced, I became the man of the house. I had to take care of my brother and sister, and I had to take care of mom because she was hurting. I had to take care. And I carried for 16 years a ton of rage at my parents because I was a child. How could you let that happen to me?
Yeah.
You know, and I never really got in touch with that. I disconnected from that. Both my mom and my favorite teacher, when my parents told me, I just was stone-faced. I was not surprised. I had one emotional outburst that night. The next day, I had an emotional outburst to my teacher that I really was very in touch with. And then my mom and my teacher both said that from then on, you never mentioned it. It was like it never affected you.
Wow.
But it was deeply affecting me. It was just, I was so overwhelmed that I disconnected myself from those feelings, buried them, and those created patterns that affected me throughout the rest of my life, causing my divorce, causing bad relationships, causing bad friendships, causing me to never really genuinely connect with other people. And then when I finally went to therapy and allowed myself to open up to those emotions, there are points in therapy last year where I was a 15-year-old boy weeping and feeling and experiencing those emotions for the first time since I was a child. And it was very difficult, but it's been great. It's, you know, and I try very hard not to do that. And so when your mom died, you felt a responsibility to be the strong one. And so you disconnect and you never deal with that grief. And so what that does physiologically and mentally, you pack those experiences back into the lizard brain, your emotional brain. And it creates these cognitive distortions. It creates these patterns that then unconsciously rule your life, and you never are aware of it because you're not in touch with those feelings, you're not in touch with those patterns, you're not examining yourself because the pain of examining yourself is too scary and too real. And then once you do open it up, it feels so good to finally get past that, you know? And when I have breakups now, I just remember 2 years ago weeping in my best friend's kitchen, telling her the deepest, darkest secret that I could ever tell anyone, that I could never share with anybody that I knew. And it was that if people truly got to know who I was, they would be so disgusted that they would never talk to me. And if people find out who I truly am, they leave me. And she was just like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But to me, that was the truth, you know? And I still think that to some extent, that when I am open, honest, and I allow myself to be vulnerable to in a relationship, that person will not like me. They'll be disgusted by me. They'll abandon me. They'll leave me. And so it's best just to kind of keep, you know, I'll there's the wall. The wall gets real close to my true self, but then the wall goes real high, you know, and it's just sort of chipping away at that. And the work of Brene Brown on vulnerability has been truly helpful. Codependent No More was a great book by Melody Beatty. Scary Close by Donald Miller changed my life last year. That's when I finally realized, like, this guy wrote my life story. And it's just funny when you hear stories like mine, when you hear stories like his, you go, oh my God, that's me.
Yeah.
And you realize you're not a freak. You're just the product of a chaotic home. You're subject to the same patterns that everybody else are. And you just go to therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and someone coaches you through how to change those cognitive distortions to think differently. And so now a breakup is a breakup. It's sad and there's grieving, but it isn't because I'm not worth love. It's not that I'm a gross freak that is incapable of being loved. It's just that it's a breakup.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, and it's still painful, but it's not abandonment painful.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, you with your background,
And
you
and I feel like I'm putting a lot of stress. Like, my parents suck because my parents were awesome. Growing up, I was like, you know what, they fight. That's what parents do. I was raised by TV, so I'm like, oh, they're like, you know, Peg and Al Bundy. It's a love-hate relationship, totally normal. You know, I've got a brother who has issues, but then I'm like this prodigy in the sense, like, I was naturally athletic and naturally smart and could pass grades, but I think I also, like, you know, went towards, like, the comedy. I became the class clown immediately because the comic relief of every situation, like, whatever. So I wasn't, like, the pretty girl. I was the pretty girl friend, and that was my role.
The sidekick.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm trying to think of, what's John Cusack's? Joan Cusack? John and Joan. Yeah, I'm like the Joan Cusack. But they were great parents. Like, they always did what was best for the kids. But then, you know, I mean, my dad has worked really hard to be sober for the past year. And yeah, we've butt heads quite a bunch. But he's definitely growing on his sober journey, which I can appreciate. And it took me stepping back completely, like, fine, I don't deserve this. I don't have to go through this. And I don't have to take care of you because you're going to be 60 years old. Not my problem.
Yeah, I think for parents, you know, and I had to have this conversation recently with one of mine. You know, I have a lot more respect for my parents now that I'm an adult, now that I've been divorced. And when you're going through that much emotional pain, you don't make the right choices. And our parents are human beings, and that's one of the toughest parts of growing up, is realizing that your parents aren't Superman and that they don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
They're just humans. And humans aren't perfect, and humans make mistakes. And it isn't that I had amazing parents. I had great parents, and I had parents that did the best they could. I had parents that are human beings, so that means that they made mistakes, and did they do everything perfect? No, but that's not the standard that we should achieve. I'm a better person for what I have worked through the last year. My life is better. My humor is a direct result of my childhood. You know, it was, I'm emotionally capable to have relationship with people that have, that most people just would never want to love. because it's just some people are too difficult. I'm thankful for the way that I was raised. I'm thankful not only for all the good things, but also the bad things. And I think when you start talking about that problems exist in your life because of your childhood, parents feel guilty as if they fucked you up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I already gave my dad the disclaimer, like, I can't wait to tell my therapist about this in the future years.
Right.
Or after my nose job in E! True Hollywood Story.
Like, listen,
I was 12.
You are the perfect candidate for Al-Anon. Al-Anon
Yeah.
is a 12-step program for the children of, substance abuse, alcoholic, and it's just full of codependent people who have the exact same story as you, or the adult children of alcoholics 12-step meetings, or Codependents Anonymous. Those are free. You don't have to go pay a therapist. Therapists are really helpful, but if you can't, then you go to Al-Anon. And, parents did do the best they can, and I think you want the best for your kids, and to think that you might not have measured up because you had a pill addiction or whatever, it really isn't. It shouldn't feel like a slap in the face if you go to Al-Anon or you go to therapy, because you're trying to get in touch with that part of you to be a better person.
Yeah.
I
try to acknowledge, like, even when I start to, like, get just ticked off, and I try to talk about this with Donnie, and then I think he just took it, way too personal, but I was just like, if I walk into the bedroom and say you did all the laundry, but you didn't put any of it up, like, it's literally just in baskets here waiting for someone to put them up, I just feel so overwhelmed and stressed out, and I just, like, freak out, anxiety, panic attack of, like, anger. But here's the catch. 2 weeks before that, I did the exact same thing to myself and came in and had that same reaction. I did all this laundry, like, you're just being upset, like, this isn't that big of a deal. And I'm like, I know. I'm just mad about how I'm feeling right now, because I actually am acknowledging how I feel, even though I've set myself up for this before.
And a lot of that tracks back, too. I mean, with the whole pent-up rage thing. And in the Brené Brown video that I was shown, it was all about blame, how you place blame on things. And it's the same thing. I come home, and even if I don't say anything, or I go to my parents' house, if I don't say anything, I expect them to know what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling, and that's just not the case. I mean,
that's not fair.
And it's not fair to either side.
But we do it.
Yeah,
we totally do it.
But we do it, and it's that escalation of from 0 to 10. Fuck counting. Like, I'm just gonna get mad, and it's gonna get really, really angry really quickly.
I didn't realize it until after the divorce. My wife, we got divorced. When people would ask, why did you get divorced? For the first 6 months, I would say, because I didn't do the dishes.
What do you say now?
But that's funny. See, I understand why you did that, and they're like, "Ha!" And then people stop asking you questions, though. They leave you alone about it.
Right.
You never have to
Yeah.
actually.
But it was
talk about it.
It was legitimately it was
No,
all
no.
she ever yelled at me was that I didn't do the dishes.
Oh.
And I never could understand, like, why don't you just get the fuck over the dishes? I'm not gonna do the dishes. I vacuumed, I cleaned the toilet, I did the laundry.
Yeah.
I just don't. I won't do one thing, and you won't let it go. I'm not gonna do the dishes. I don't like it, and I don't want to do it. So leave
Yeah.
me alone. And it wasn't until I read the 5 Love Languages, which I think is a really helpful book. It is a Christian book. If that's
I'm about
not,
ready to write down every book. I
not
mean,
your
I don't
jam.
read. I might have to get the Audible.
I have a whole
but-
list. You can
He's
find
got,
me.
yeah.
I
You
have.
sent it to me before.
Yeah, I have because by sharing,
I have them queued.
I have been blessed by so many people reaching out to me because I'm open about my struggles on social media. A lot of people, I mean, I've probably quasi-counseled or had deep conversations with 20 or 30 friends that are going through a divorce just because I've been open about mine. So yeah, you're free to email me and I'll send you my list of books. But yeah, when I read that book, I realized that, like, the way that I experience love is through touch. If you're touching me and you're telling me you love me, then I know you love me. But if you're an acts of service person, if you're a gifts person, or if there's like one other, and I always forget what it is. But like for her, she was a gifts and an acts of service person. I'm last on gifts. So like she would bring me these stupid little things, and I would just be like, throw this in the trash. This is the dumbest thing. Why would you give this to me? This is a cheap piece of crap that I don't need. It serves no purpose. But like, I didn't realize at the time because I was so ridiculous and not I just didn't
She
have the
wasn't
knowledge.
living up to your standard of what you needed, so you're like, that was a waste of
Right.
time. Don't even bother.
She wasn't talking to me. She wasn't touching me, but she was giving me gifts and she was doing nice things for me. And that was her way. Those acts of service and those gifts were her. And I should have done the dishes and I should have given her more gifts. And that would have made her feel loved. But I was trying to just touch her all the time.
Yeah.
And then she didn't want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So should you sit down with like your partners and be like, let's look at the 5 touches and see how do we describe each other and how do we think, and then maybe if you're like, you know what, this is who I am, this is what I actually like, and this is what you like, so now let's try to accommodate each other.
Sometimes it's just as easy as saying what you want.
Oh,
Right.
I've told Donnie
And-
what I want, but somehow I still turn it into a nagging thing, and I
Right.
can hear it, and I'm like, I can't not sound like a bitch. I'm so
Right.
sorry.
And
Right.
it's almost just as easy. I mean, like I said earlier, with just saying, look, this is my pet peeve. Can we work on this?
Yeah.
And just being upfront. I mean, that changes the whole thing. And then let me ask you this, because this is what went through my mind as you were talking about your ex-wife.
Mhm.
Knowing what you know now, and I understand that because of your divorce, you went through the process of learning what you know now.
Mhm.
Do you think you would have tried to work harder on your marriage, or do you think you still would have gotten a divorce?
We would have gotten divorced because I made a bad choice. I made a choice out of fear that I would never. I had a high school sweetheart that I loved. I was single for 5 years, and this was the first date I could get. And she, I knew it wasn't right. I remember going to my best friend's house and leaving her place a week before the wedding and going, "That's who I should be marrying. That's not the person I'm marrying." I mean, I made a bad choice, and we just had nothing in common. And truthfully, I am a giver. I am a caretaker. I am willing to make a lot of changes. I am self-aware. I'm always trying to improve myself. And that person was someone that did not have that quality. They, the final therapy session that we had, because we gave it one last-ditch therapy session. It was our only one. It was Valentine's Day a couple years ago.
I remember this.
And I had spent 2 weeks thinking about what I could do differently and how I could improve the relationship. And so the therapist asked me, and I listed all these things off of what I could do differently. And when my ex-wife was asked, she said, "Well, I don't know what else I can do. He won't change. I've tried praying. I've tried yelling at him. I've tried this." And that's the moment that it sunk in for me that we were doomed, because this person was lacking any ability to be self-aware and was never going to get it and is just going to repeat the same cycles, and I hope for the best. Like, I know that, she's in a long-term relationship. She's happy. That makes me happy for her. And that is the extent of the emotion that I have around her. I just don't, it's so funny when you're going through a divorce, you think that nothing will ever be worse. This is the worst thing ever. I'll never get over this person. And here I am 2 years later. I just don't have emotions around her. I don't have thoughts. I don't think about her. But no, I think there's just some times where things just aren't going to work. And if one person is blaming the other person and isn't willing to look at their own side of the street, then it can't work.
What if they're just constantly blaming themselves? Because I blame myself.
Yeah,
for basically everything.
then you're.
But then Donnie's like, "Why are you blaming yourself?" And I'm like, "Wow."
Right. No, the truth is
I'm
that
crazy.
two people that live together drive each other crazy.
Yeah. And that could be with your best friend. Like, that's
Right.
why so many best friends out of high school go live together first year of college, and then they end up hating each other.
Oh yeah, no. My best friend from high school and we made a staunch effort to not live in the same building.
Yeah.
So when we moved to college, because it would have been an explosive idea.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the only time I ever really did stay with her is when I was drunk in her dorm room.
It's
But
probably a good thing. I mean, I went to a completely different school. I was like, I'm going to go to Anderson University, guys.
I went to Ball State.
You guys go to Purdue and have fun.
I went to
I'll go
Ball
visit on the weekend.
parentheses will take anyone State.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, I think you have to stop being so hard on yourself.
I basically have, it's been a great relationship the past 2 years. But I was pushing him away for the longest time, no matter what he did. And he was one of the persons that made all this effort. And he's like, you need to put more effort in the relationship. And I just got defensive. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But I do this, this, and this.
It's an unconscious thing where you don't think that you're worthy of that level of love, and this person will leave you anyways, and so therefore you've got to do two things: push them away, push them away, push them away, because eventually they will do exactly what you think they're going to do, which is leave you, and simultaneously testing them.
Yeah.
How much will you take before you'll leave?
Poor Donnie. I mean, we moved out. Like we moved out, and that was like the best thing for our relationship. And I think people were like, "Oh, they're not even together," and blah blah blah. It's like we've been together 8 years, bitches. So
Yeah.
that's longer, and we still aren't married. And I get a lot of slack. Like my dad literally be like, "Why aren't you married? When are you gonna get married? Don't you want to get married?" And it's like, wow, I don't know.
Fuck societal conventions. They're a prison.
I was like, we've been together 8 years, so it's longer than a lot of.
No,
other
like
people.
one of the first things I did is I stopped negative self-talk. And I just thought to myself, I read, treat yourself like your own best friend. Like, would I let someone talk to me the way that I was talking to myself? No, the answer was no. And it got so far that excuse me, my recent girlfriend, hiccups. My recent ex-girlfriend said, we were talking about me doing comedy, and she goes, yeah, but you don't ever, would you be comfortable doing any self-deprecating material? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I've never heard you say anything self-deprecating. You never make a joke at your own expense. And I thought, oh wow, she's right. Like, I got so hardcore, like I was the butt of every joke I ever told. And it was because the tape in my head was just so negative. I got to a point, I was so strict about being mean, not being mean to myself, that I had stopped being self-deprecating. Like, I'd stopped joking about myself. Now, I'm other people make fun of me, and it's like, like Grace and Jeff and everybody makes jokes at my expense all the time.
That is correct.
Yeah, and it's fine. And I don't mind being the straight man for the jokes. It's just, and I now, after hearing that, kind of loosen up and make jokes at my own expense, but you just have to get so intensely focused on stopping the negative self-talk first and foremost.
Man, that's hard.
Or else, yeah, it seems hard. It's like anything else. Losing 70 pounds seemed really hard when I was 330 pounds. But then once I stopped eating microwavable burritos and fast food every day and started eating fruit and...
So trick my mountain.
Fruit,
I'm on a torture path.
Fruit and like whole, I feel so much better. And when I get off those good things, that like when I stop doing self-care, my world goes upside down. People break up with me. My world sucks. I become an asshole, and I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to live the way that I lived the first 31, because I robbed myself of, I mean, I guess I didn't rob myself. I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And at least I learned at 32 how to be a grown-up and how to deal with my emotions and be somewhat of an emotional adult.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? All three of us, I feel like we all would like, I mean, I guess I don't know if I've heard you say that, but it's like you go in for the joke, you'll play with the jokes, because it's like, it's comedy. Like, no one actually means like we mean something bad towards like women or anything like that. I'm just saying women because I'm a girl, because I can get away with saying it. But like, I put myself down constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Just in everyday conversation and in my head. And if I'm talking to you, Grace, or even at home to Donnie, I've never heard Donnie say anything bad about himself.
Right.
He just is silent. Where I'm like, well, I need to fill the air. Let me just, put myself down, because that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Because if you're silent and there's silence, you might start feeling something.
I
Yeah.
guess it's terrible, because I was like, man, if anyone was ever like had a camera set up on me, they'd be like, this bee is nuts. Like, she's talking to herself. The cat talks back. Quotes there, because it doesn't. It's
She
a cat.
does.
She does meow though.
My office is next to Grace. How often do I yell at you for talking to yourself mean?
Not like to my putting myself down.
Yeah.
At least once or twice a day.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
But I
Like,
mean,
I'll-
that's a real. And I mean, the most recent joke I can think of. So I moved into a new office about 6 months ago, and I moved into the office because it has a nice sized closet, so I can keep promotional material in there. Well, the running joke now is, oh, well, if you can't find Grace, she's probably locked in her crying closet, which was kind of a joke, but
It's true.
It's kind of true.
No, but
'Cause it's
doing your
nice.
job, I would be just like in the fetal position and bawling every day.
But it's not my job that upsets me. Sometimes it's just there's one of our coworkers who knows exactly what to say, and I don't think he knows how to do it that he's doing it on purpose, but he knows exactly what to say to just set me off to the point of no return.
The second someone talks to me sternly
Mhm.
or in a manner of like, I don't know if it's like passive aggressive, I get defensive, I get mean, and I also say I was wrong
Mhm.
and it is my fault, and then I just break down.
Yeah, and so I think, but that's also is an internalization thing, and
Yeah.
that's part of the self-deprecation. Is just that's a cover-up. And I read something somewhere about comedians that, that's the main reason they get into comedy.
Yeah.
Because people laugh at them putting themselves down, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I think I can make
Yeah.
this work. I can do this." And so you'll see depression and anxiety run rampant through all of these comics because that's all they know, and they make a living off of it.
We're all very hilarious here.
I'm funny as hell.
Yeah.
No one else thinks so.
No,
I think you're funny, Grace, and super strong and smart. Like, I admire you as a woman for living in a man's
Thanks,
world
Jess.
up there.
Oh my God,
No,
you are
Grace,
seriously the best.
like Grace doesn't understand. Grace is very sensitive.
Correct.
And part of it is because she's young and she doesn't have a lot of life experience yet. And so once you get, I've gone through a lot of stuff at 32. I'm 10 years older than her. And, like, I have to take a pause and think, okay, Grace and Jeff are the young people on the staff. Like, they're going through stuff that they've never experienced before. And they don't know, like, because if you're 20 or 19 or whatever, you're going through things for the first time, and it seems like, oh, it's so big. But then after it's happened to you like 8 times and you're 32, you're like, whatever.
It's the ramp up.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the ramp up. It's like even just growing up, before you get your license. It's the biggest deal in the world to get your license, and it's the day after it happens. It's like, oh, cool.
And I refuse to grow up, so maybe that's part of the problem.
See, that's my
So-
thing. I can't wait.
Really?
I'm just
I would trade you.
part of my thing is I like going to work, and I like kind of having my normal routine.
Yeah.
I got bad
And-
news. This is all there is.
Good.
This is it.
This is it. You're
It doesn't get
grown up.
better. You're a grown up.
Oh.
So make it better. But yeah, like
I just got shut down.
So I'm gonna
No
go
one's
jump.
gonna hear this for a year, and I'm a grown up.
I'm gonna
Men-
go jump. I'll see you later.
men bond by busting each other's balls, and Grace is the only female staff member, right?
That's a good point.
Are you it?
That's a good
Well,
point.
outside of people who aren't there throughout the day, and then
Right.
people on air,
But
but
around the office, Grace is the only one, and we work with a lot of control freaks. Everybody who works on the Bob and Tom show is a complete control freak. They think
Correct.
they can do their job better than anybody else, and so we don't want anybody else screwing it all up. Everybody gets along. The staff really does like each other, admire each other, get along with each other, love each other.
It's like a big happy family, but
right.
like families.
Yeah, and so there's not much fighting, but as a result, because we're all comfortable with each other and we like each other, we bust each other's balls because guys bond through ball busting and making jokes at each other's expense. And Grace can't take it. She hasn't figured out what I've been trying to say to her for a whole year, which is that means everybody likes you.
Yeah,
That
that's
means
true.
every-
They're actually talking to you.
Right.
It's a good thing.
If we weren't making jokes about you or including you in on jokes, if you were on your own island and nobody was talking to you, then you need to worry.
That's actually very true. So growing up being icebox and being the tomboy and hanging out with like dudes that were always my friends, like that was the best part, is being included. And there's nothing worse than being excluded.
She's
Yeah.
also an only child.
Yep.
So that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. It's all
So-
about me
Oh.
all the time.
But I mean, yeah, you're included. So you're like, it's guys club.
Right.
Men's
You
club.
got invited to lunch the other day when I did not. So-
what?
But I couldn't go.
I
know.
also did not get said invite, but I'm not on that side of the building, so.
It's okay. And then I made an ass out of myself by sending the host of the lunch a text saying, "Please keep inviting me to things. I'm cool." And then I realized how desperate and sad that
No,
sounded.
no, no,
And
you
I'm
played
like,
it up.
I am
You're being
never-
one of the dudes. You're like, that was cool, thanks, man.
No, that's definitely
That's-
not a dude thing.
So
Yeah,
you were like,
that's-
hey,
I'm embarrassing myself.
well, then just text that person tonight, like at 11:30, and go, you up?
He has to be up at like 4 a.m, so
Oh.
probably not.
Yeah. No, you're
But-
So.
No, Grace does a great job and everybody likes her, and so they make fun of her.
Yeah.
Like they make fun of all the rest of us, and she takes it personally and she cries in her
I
closet.
fucking hate it. Pardon my French. It's just it's a guy thing. Chris is right. Like he's 100% right. It's a guy thing. It's how they bond and it's how they exchange. But for me, I don't know.
There's nothing worse than being excluded. What if everyone was like a part of a joke somehow except for you? Wouldn't you be like, Oh.
Would you rather everybody just tiptoe around you and stop talking to you?
No, and that's
'Cause
part of it too.
That starts to happen.
And then kind of that is, I would rather somebody just come to me and be like, and that's one of the things with one of our coworkers, is that if we ever have an issue with the other, it'll build up for a certain amount of time, but then we'll stop and say, look, this is where I'm at. This is what's bugging me.
Yeah.
And it'll, it nip it in the bud right there, and we move on. But it's always, an explosion when
Yeah.
it happens. But I mean, kind of going back to it, and it's the internalization thing. Like, I care so much that it builds up to this just giant, big ball of nasty ass feelings that I don't want to deal with until it gets poked and explodes.
It's because you're a
understand.
woman.
And that's
I
right.
know.
I don't know how I got so far away
I'll
from the kitchen.
tell you the same thing that someone told me once. Don't care so much.
I know.
Yes.
I hate it.
Granted, I will be like, oh my God, they said this. What does this mean? I need to freak out about it for 20 minutes.
You've been around it forever. It's your dad. Your dad was is the graphic designer for the show.
Yeah, I
has
pulled
been
that
forever.
nepotism card.
It's your first real job. You have real responsibility, and so of course you care too much. Everybody cares too much when they're 22.
I'm 24.
whatever.
Jerk.
Whatever.
Wait, is your birthday next week?
Well, it's on Monday, but
So she's 23.
23 until
Next
Monday.
year, when you hear this, she'll be 24.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's okay.
I love future podcast listeners.
It's okay. You just need to relax more. You need to chill out.
What would you tell 24-year-old you?
Oh, I still haven't chilled out, and that's why I'm extremely good looking and successful. So
Oh.
no,
I love the positivity.
I honestly, caring too much and like emotionally attaching yourself to your work.
There could be worse things.
It is good in one respect, but it also can be. It's like perfectionism. It becomes a prison because that becomes your identity. So you have to find your identity outside of Grace, the talent booker. My identity is not just Chris, the website guy. My identity is libertarian, caring person, good friend. Like the thing that I care most about in my life is that when I die, I want people to say he was there for me at the worst moment of my life and I could count on him. That is far more important to me now at 32. That wasn't even on my radar at 22. My aspiration at 22 was to be incredibly successful in whatever field I was in, which at the time was radio, and so I spent 10 years trying to hustle to get ahead in radio. It worked, but it also meant that I had shitty personal relationships. And, caring too much about anything is not good. If you care too much about alcohol, or you care too much about work, or you care too much about podcasts, you care too much about memes, then things can go wrong. You got to have balance in life.
Very well said.
Yeah, and it's just really important to not let your identity become your job, because ultimately a job is not something you can control, is it?
No.
Yes and no. I mean, there's certain aspects to it. In our line of work, no.
Right.
There's really no control as to what is going to happen, who's going to say what, who's going to feel what way.
Right.
And it's really just working on the fly. And it's being able to drop that ball catch that ball as soon as it's dropped. And I think that's a big thing, even especially, I mean, I'm young enough, but I'm how you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as soon as I haven't graduated yet. And that's always been a big thing with me. And I never really even took that down a notch until I talked to Chris, and who hasn't graduated from college either.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gotten to a really good place in his career, and he hasn't graduated. So why am I so concerned about it?
You don't need to graduate. It's
Eh,
a waste of money.
College is a waste of time and money.
I agree.
Let me just tell you that if I didn't get my diploma and I just stopped after my internship, well, whatever. Anyway, I got in because I knew a teacher.
Yeah.
But I could have still got the job I had from not getting a bachelor's degree.
Yeah. But I think that's also something that I still hang on. It's like, if I want that just one piece of paper to move forward. But regardless.
If I write you a piece of paper, will you feel validated?
Kind of. If you
Okay.
get it framed and I can hang it in my living room or in my
like,
office.
You think you need it, but you don't.
Right.
Because what matters is your intelligence and your work ethic and your ability to connect to people and your ability to be responsible and your ability to show up and do a great job and make your bosses happy, which you do. What does not matter is some irrelevant educational institution saying that you got a piece of paper. You now have references. You have what it takes to be successful.
You can't learn experience in college.
Right.
And
nobody has asked me for a resume since I was 22
Mm-hmm.
in 10 years. And it's because I'm hardworking. People see the fruits of my work. They know I do a good job. I'm friends with every employer I've ever had. My employers come back to me and ask for help. And when I go to a different place to work, my reputation follows me. That's what matters, not some bullshit validation. And this is also part of growing up, and this is, it's shedding these false expectations that society has for us.
Yeah.
You don't need college to be successful. If you're going to be a doctor, you need college. If you're going to, book a radio show and email people back and forth talking about talent, that takes organizational skills, people skills. That takes,
I call people too.
You
Chris.
call people too, but those are people skills. You're not going to learn that in a liberal arts degree getting a history major.
Right.
None of that is relevant to your life. And so why saddle yourself with the debt? But again, in your case, who gives a shit if you're married or not? That's nobody's business but yours and Donnie's.
And I'm always fine about it. And then I get all girly sometimes. Then I'm like, okay, Donnie, I'm so tired of having to tell someone, you buy a house, you go, I'm Jessica, we just bought a house. This is my boyfriend, Donnie. He was, offended. They thought I was, your slum boyfriend that just, slept on the couch. I'm like, why did you feel that way? Because I introduced you as my boyfriend and that I bought a house when even though we bought the house, it's just how I phrased it. And I'm like, I feel almost embarrassed, this is my boyfriend. No one takes it serious.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say husband, they go, oh, okay. But boyfriend, it's like, oh, that's cute.
Right.
Right.
And I mean, he finally, that was the only time he's ever felt the way I felt. I'm just the girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And it's no, I'm his opposite sex domestic partner. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's how you
Check
should
my
introduce-
beneficiary.
You should introduce each other like that.
I have. And especially when people are smart alecky, oh, how long have you guys been together? When are you getting married? I'm like, well, he's my opposite sex domestic partner.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Having too much fun practicing.
Yeah.
Right.
Or when are you going to have kids? Yeah, too much fun practicing.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, too much fun practicing once a month.
Talking about holding hands on the couch.
Get it, girl.
Mm.
That was
What was
me being immature. I'm not growing up.
This is radio. You can't.
I know. Is this?
This is where we're going.
I don't know.
No.
This is the
Hey,
future.
we talked an hour and 8 minutes, and this was going to be Chris telling us how to have a podcast, and it became a therapy session. I'm really excited about it.
But it
because
kind of
I enjoy it. I really do.
This is exactly what I wanted to happen. So let
You
me.
tricked us.
I did. So
I was gonna say this is kind of the most structured podcast we've ever had, and there
Yeah.
was no game plan. There
No
was
9 seconds of the 90s, which I could still hum something real quick.
We could have Chris do one to try to trick us if he'd like to, since it is a regular segment on our show and a fun bit. But he probably won't think it's fun.
I don't know 90. I don't have fun. I'm the.
I don't have fun.
I don't.
That was very that
No.
was very TG of you. Oh, I don't have fun.
I don't have time for fun.
I don't have time. I have
No.
7 children and a
They're-
screaming baby.
You have no idea how similar Tom and I are. It's scary.
Yeah,
It's
I
okay.
have to book Chris at least 2 weeks out to go do something.
Oh, wow.
And that's my job to book people, and I still forget.
And then I cancel at the last.
And then he
minute.
cancels and sits at home, and I'm saying, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Sitting at home reading a book, watching TV at the same time."
Huh?
And I'm like, well,
I'm like, you can read and watch TV?
So
I haven't read a
here's
book in years.
so anyway,
here's the key to good podcasting. Okay, first you need to have a structured introduction. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows who you are. You have to introduce yourselves and you have to introduce your guests. I start every podcast by giving a little bit. Hey, this is Chris. Welcome to We Are Libertarians, which you should subscribe to on everything. I'm your host, Chris Spangle. To my right is Greg Lenz. Hello. To my left is the other person. Hello. This person is here because they do this, and here's why they're a credible authority.
mm-hmm.
And then, today, so we're talking a little bit today about X, Y, and Z. Here's going to be our topic of discussion. And then, the first 20 minutes is comedy, and then we kind of derail and go back and forth. But what it comes down to is just good conversation. And trying to structure things and make a radio show, that's not what people want. People want storytelling. People want emotional connection. People, if you're going to build a community, they have to get to know you.
Right.
And you have to be vulnerable. And, people have to feel like they're getting some value out of listening to your podcast because they have a million choices. And there are better podcasts out there than you. There are better libertarian podcasts than mine. There are, and so you really have to make it worthwhile. Not everybody's going to like you. It's going to be okay.
No,
But
it's not.
That's why you always no negative comments, please. Like,
But-
all right, just leave.
yeah, but you're gonna get it. Like
Yeah.
people will go, "Oh, this just sounds like two girls yapping and it's traffic and blah blah blah." But
Which it might be to some people, which is fine.
right, but
Technically,
it's
we are two girls, quote unquote, as you say, yapping. So that is an accurate description.
exactly. But what are you yapping about? That's what matters.
Stuff and things.
Is it you two? So what do you think of it like this? What do you get out of Twitter and Facebook? What do you want to share? Do you want to share somebody who is updating you on what coffee they are getting, or do you want to share something that is a meaningful post that you went, "Oh, I learned something. Oh, that's a good thought. Oh, that makes me want to tell other people about it."
Yeah.
So this is the same thing. It's that same idea. And so, when you sit down and we have this conversation, yeah, you don't know where it's going to go, but we take the conversation to places of vulnerability where the three of us share things from our lives, and you will get notes about this podcast of people going, "Hey, can I get that book? Hey, can I, hey, I learned that thing. Hey, my dad has been addicted to pills forever too. Hey, my boyfriend violated my trust. What can you do?" How they just want to talk to you about the experience that they had listening to your podcast.
Right.
They want to connect with you and go, "That really was helpful. Thank you." And so what the key to a good podcast is to let yourself be vulnerable, share things, not too far. Like there's going to be one thing that I'm going to suggest that you guys edit out because it's just too much. It's sharing too much. There's got to be a line. But people at the end of this podcast will hopefully on some level go, "Wow, I recognize myself in this and I could do that." So that is the key to a good podcast. It isn't structure. It is a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't interviewing guests. It's a lot of times guests are boring.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're having a real conversation. You get Jay Baker on here and he tells the story of the early days of the Bob and Tom show. You get Rupert Boneham from Survivor on, and he talks about changing kids' lives. You get somebody on, and they tell you what it's like to run for president. You get somebody on here to talk about, the time they saw a ghost. Again, it's storytelling, and
Right.
it's helping. You guys do this for you, and you do it in the way that you want to do it because it's got to be fun for you, and you've got to be engaged in it, or it's never going to last. But you also have to give your listeners something of value.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, an hour-long conversation of Taylor Swift's latest album, which I'm just assuming that's what you girls
No.
have talked about,
No.
is
And I'm
Jerk.
kind of offended.
Even though it was wonderful
Oh,
and Taylor Swift, if you ever want to contact us, please contact us.
But
You're beautiful.
I don't know. I haven't listened to the past ones because they haven't been out yet. But
Sorry.
what we did here today was a podcast that listeners will get some benefit from.
And I think that was kind of the big drive behind even starting one is that, especially, and we'll go into this on an alternate podcast if Jess and I ever want to delve into our experiences. With my past history of just growing up and becoming a person in general, I turned to, and that was my first inclination, was to turn to social media and to turn to YouTube and to podcasts and to radio shows to see who else has the same voice that I have, who's thinking and feeling the same things that I'm feeling.
I turned to music lyrics and put them in my away message on
Right.
AIM.
Exactly.
Humans
So people knew
on
how I
MySpace.
felt.
And that was the thing, is that I couldn't find anything that was specifically to me. I could find a lot of male perspective that was as dark and dirty as I was feeling, but there was no women out there who were saying, yeah, this sucks. Like it really sucks. And I know how you feel. And I'm going through life at the same rate you are, and I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me either. Yeah. So why not try? And, it just makes, I think that's what the biggest drive behind this was, is just to find our path as to how we can relate to somebody else out there who either, maybe feeling like shit and just wanting a pick-me-up, or maybe just this is part of their day, part of their routine, and they have people that they can relate to.
The best podcast that I do is not We Are Libertarians. It is the most...
The Maya podcast?
It's Creating Maya, and it is a podcast. It's been 15 episodes over the course of 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, of my friend Maya, who's transitioning from male to female, and it is emotionally raw. This last episode, it was me debating her on... I don't want her to kill herself. She's considering suicide, and it was an hour or two long conversation about deeply emotional things of what she's going through and the pain that she goes through, the emotional pain that somebody who is transitioning goes through. And, at the end of the podcast, she had to go and smoke. and I just put my head in my hands and I wept because it was just so emotionally raw. We've talked about her castration. We've talked about her struggles and societal expectations for her working as a trans person. And the most rewarding thing is that by putting her story out there, by the two of us just getting really uncomfortable in talking about what we feel and think, and it's not attention seeking. It is genuine, honest conversation between two friends in front of a microphone, trying to show people what the truth of being trans is like. And so many people have written and said, I hated trans people. I was okay with gay people because I knew gay people. Not a lot of people know a trans person, and it's very difficult. And I started the podcast as a person that was not really cool with it, as a Christian conservative leaning person. And, through the process of having that conversation on air with her, I realized that to be a good Christian was to love her and to respect her struggle, and to maybe not always understand, but to treat her like a human being. And through that experience, she and I have become best friends. And people write in and say, it's not a pro-trans thing. I understand.
Pro-person thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's like with the Orlando shooting.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to talk about guns, and everybody wants to talk about gays, and everybody wants to talk about Islam, and everybody's trying to fight and ban something. The problem is not that this guy was a religious person, or that this person was targeting a weapon that he used. It's that he didn't see other people as a human being and worthy of living. He probably didn't feel that way. We, in the discussion, have done nothing to foster the conversation, to understand his motivations, to grieve with the people to grieve the loss of people. We've just immediately jumped to dividing, being angry. We don't treat each other like human beings. We don't look at each other through empathetic eyes. And so as a result, we get more mass shootings. You're never going to stop mass shootings by taking away all the guns, because you're never going to get rid of all the guns. But if we change society to a point where men can talk about their feelings, and there are more things like this where we can have these honest conversations, and people are willing to be brave and talk about shame and sexual abuse and drug addiction and eating disorders and divorce and the other traumas of life, so people feel like they're not alone, then we're going to have less mass shootings, because we as a race understand what it means to be human. And I'll wrap it up with my favorite story from one of my favorite comedians, whom I'm blanking on right now. I did a whole podcast with him. Southern guy, Southern comedian, storyteller.
Stuart Huff.
Stuart Huff, yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Stuart Huff. Yeah, the comedian Stuart Huff was on our podcast, and he told a story about passing a car crash and how everybody got out of their car and they ran towards the car crash, and as they're all walking back, white, black, Hispanic, he just thought, nobody knows that guy in that car was a Republican. Nobody knew if he was a Jew. Nobody knew if he was a Christian. Nobody knew if he was a Muslim. Nobody knew if he was trans. Nobody knew anything. They just saw another human being in trouble, and they ran to help. And emotionally in this country, we aren't running to help.
Yeah.
And we are stigmatizing people who have mental health issues. I don't see somebody who was and obviously he was motivated by Islam to go and kill people, but he was a mentally ill person.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have had a gun. There is no doubt that if there were less AK-47s, less people would probably die, but they're never going to go away completely. But we can, if we start to get in touch with our emotions and start to be really honest with ourselves, instead of looking what everybody else could do differently or what the government can ban, then we're going to be more successful as a species, and we're going to be more loving, and life is going to be a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing, especially, I mean, I hate to step on the soapbox, but the power of radio in general. I mean, outside of just television, the power of audio, of just hearing somebody's voice, like
The
that
power
one
of sound.
Exactly. The way you say it too, it just works so
The
well.
power of sound.
Thank you. But it's just it's so effective. Just having that voice, even in your earbud as you're walking down the street, makes all of the difference in the world.
And later, when you think about something, because you've heard it, you will recall it and be like, oh, yeah, you know what? I've actually heard that. And then you start to reflect. And
Exactly. And then you hear shit like
See,
that, and it's
I
ruined.
enjoy the lightness. Well,
But that's the thing.
no,
like,
that's just dirty. That was the wrong end.
but that's the thing. I mean, you can be serious. You
Sorry,
can
I
be
queefed.
playful. There we go.
Grace
we'll balance it out.
I've got
Grace is
nothing to
queefing
do.
again.
Oh man.
I feel like that's like a perfect wrap. man.
Golly gee. But that's kind of I mean, I think that's a good end to this, is that, you know, we're trying. That's why it's we tried. I mean,
Yeah.
we're just trying something new. We're putting ourselves out there, because both Jess and I have never done that. I mean, I don't want to speak for both of us, but
No,
it's-
I don't.
I don't know. I saw Jess on YouPorn. She put herself out there.
Damn it, that was not me. That was somebody else nubile. See how I
So-
use that in definition?
yeah, exactly. Now,
Sporadically.
so thank you, Chris Spangle, for coming. How can people get in touch with you if they want to know more about you or what you have to say or your platform?
We are libertarians.com. You can Google me, Chris Spangle. You'll find me.
I can't wait to get to that point.
You can Google me, but
can
you won't
just
be
Google me.
impressed. You'll be like, oh, she played softball.
Bert
Fantastic.
There's one of my favorite comedians, Bert Kreischer, said that he went to do a thing where he was going to bring 100 burgers to a podcast with an audience, and he calls Burger King in advance and was like, hey, I want to order 100 burgers. I'm a comedian. It's going to be funny. And he goes, you can Google me, I swear. And I
It's
just thought,
legit.
I was like, oh, okay, that's the point of no return.
But
But
you can Google yours. Yeah.
and then if you're in the Indy area, are you guys doing another live podcast
Yep.
soon?
We do every month, Morty's Comedy Joint. We do a live podcast. The next one's June 27th, but
Ooh, can you say what year that is? For
2016.
Okay.
But,
So you may have missed it by now.
Yeah, check out our Facebook page. That's where we post the events. Or check out Morty's.com or Morty's Comedy.
Morty's Comedy.
I'm excited to go to Morty's, especially now that I found out they have like karaoke.
Oh,
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
live band karaoke.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
It's a blast.
I'll be there.
Yeah, and then I kind of live at Morty's when I do go see comedy in Indy.
Yeah.
It's kind of my hub.
Yeah.
That and Crackers. Those are my two hubs.
Grace, how can people get in touch with you?
So, in touch with us,
Us,
Jessica.
you,
So
touching me, touching you.
if you want to
Okay.
get to know us or follow us, you can email us at wetridepodcast@gmail.com.
Well, we tried podcast.
Or you can follow us on Twitter at We Tried Podcast. You can reach out to me directly at Grace Yinger and Jess at JN Alsman.
See, Grace is cool. Like, she has a Twitter handle that's her name. And the Jessica Alsman out there in Twitterland has not tweeted. You don't create an account and not use it for 5 years. So
Maybe
anyway, yeah, I'm
Chris-
Jay and Alsman. I gotta figure something out. I might just be Jess.
Chris, you know the internet. People, can you get them to fix that?
No.
Well, we tried.
We called the internet. They didn't
said-
pick up.
they
so
passed.
I'm just gonna have to come up with a new name. Scarlet Meth.
So yeah, throw your comments, questions, concerns at us, and we will be happy to retort.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Episode 7 of Well We Tried with Chris Spangle as our
Thank you.
special guest. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Chris.
Thank
Woo!
you.
Thank you.
Grace, I'm Jess. Till next time. See you later.
Bye.